How do you see the process of developing an integrated long-term local plan 2019-2036 working? Who, when and how? And what part would you want to see residents play?
This is a really interesting question about how we plan the future of our city. I mean, Cambridge has done well historically, but there are real challenges at the moment, and the local plan has to address those. Has to tackle housing so that people can actually afford to be here. We shouldn't take our success in the city for granted, and if we don't make sure that prices start to be affordable for people, then Cambridge will stifle itself. If we don't make sure that transport becomes more easy to get around, if people can't actually travel, then Cambridge can stifle itself. So the plan will be crucial. What we have to do is to get everybody working together on this. It has to involve residents. Too often we've seen, like with the City Deal Board just imposing things on people, doing things to them. That's the wrong way to do it. We have to engage residents, we have to engage businesses, we have to come up with a plan that works, that makes sure that people can afford to live here, that means that there are jobs here, and that people can get around Cambridge. And frankly, that Cambridge becomes a nicer place to be, where it's actually more enjoyable to spend time here with green spaces, with social activities, with cultural activities, rather than just becoming some sort of bland space.
That's a very important question. Obviously, Cambridge as an area is going to continue to develop. It looks like there's going to be a lot of growth coming to Cambridge City in years to come. Nationally, I think, to deal with one issue very quickly, it's very important that we make sure that growth is balanced around different regions of the country, so that not all the investment and not all the economic growth is focused on specifically on Cambridge City or on the southeast as a whole, because it does put a lot of pressure on housing. Regarding the local plan specifically, we need to make sure that the city grows in a way that means that it's still a place that people want to live, and that it preserves the character of Cambridge as a city as a nice place to live. It's very important that local people get access to good housing, so I want to make sure that local residents associations are involved in planning where that housing goes to make sure that the city grows in a good way, as we've talked about. I'd like as much consultation with local residents as is possible. There is an issue about the growth in student housing and that pushing out options for residents in certain places in the city, so it's important that we get that balance right as well. There's a role for everyone to play here, for the local councils, for the national government, but it's very, very important that residents feel consulted with and get their say over how the city develops, because there's been a real problem with the way the City Deal, for example, has conducted their consultations, and people need to be genuinely included in the way that Cambridge grows and helping to plan that to make sure that it's a good place for people to stay and a good place for people to live.
We need a complete change, in my view, to the way we run our local planning system. I don't think it's working for either Cambridge or for other parts of the country. To get the balance we need for a fine city like Cambridge requires far, far more input from local people. I was distraught by the Wilton Terrace issue, where it was very clear what people in Cambridge wanted, and it wasn't possible, even though councillors wanted to do it, to actually get that across. And in the end, I spoke personally to Secretary of State Greg Clark, and he couldn't do anything about it. Now, there's something wrong with that. So I believe strongly in a planned approach to the future. I do think it's important we have a planning system, but I don't think that it's working at the moment. So the question of who's involved, yes, we do need strategic oversight from the government, because places like Cambridge are of national importance. We also need clearly council involvement, but we fundamentally need the support of local people. Now that balance, and people have tried altering the planning system over a number of years, that balance in my view has not been got right. So if Labour wins the election, what we've pledged to is a constitutional convention to look again at the relationship between the different nations of the United Kingdom, but crucially in this context, the relationship between national government and local government. And getting that balance right, I'm really committed to working with local people, because this is not a simple question, but it's not working at the moment. We need to change it.
So my party, Rebooting Democracy, would create sortition panels, which is groups of randomly selected residents stratified so that they fairly represent all areas of our society. And these residents groups would have the access to facilitators. They'd be given training in how to use evidence and where evidence comes from, and they would spend weeks and months reviewing the plans going forward, using some of their own experience, looking at other people's, looking at various lobby groups who want to talk to them, but putting this all into context of their range of experience and their range of their range of experience across Cambridge. So they would create a long-term plan that doesn't have a set ideology that comes from one party or another. It would be based on where they want to go and where they see the future of Cambridge.